Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. And we're going to have so much fun today because we're going to be talking with an expert about how we need to get our shift together. I love it. I love that when I saw that on your website. So please join me in welcoming Chrisa Zindros Boyce to our program today. Welcome, Chrisa.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Well, let me tell people a little bit about you and then we will dive into this. So Chrisa Zindros Boyce brings over a decade of management and executive level leadership to the Handel Group. Throughout her career, she has worked on building brands and creating business-driving initiatives that have positively impacted sales, profit, and employee retention for large and small companies. As Chief Strategy Officer for Handel Group, Chrisa works closely with leaders from all divisions to ensure that HG is optimally growing and scaling as a company. Her responsibilities span business development to financial operations and marketing. In her role as an executive coach, Chrisa leads diversity and inclusion workshops, culture transformations, and high potential training programs across the globe. She supports both growing companies and industry conglomerates in designing cultures and structures that lead to increased employee retention, engagement, and profitability. Her roster of individual clients includes an international group of serial entrepreneurs, perennial corporate executives, and established individual contributors that hail from a broad range of sectors, including finance, entertainment, fashion, technology, nonprofit, and government. In her one-on-one coaching, Chrisa leans into her innate creativity, intuition, and sense of humor to offer a personalized approach to help her clients meet their goals. Through an in-depth process, she helps her clients mitigate bad habits and rebalance their priorities. She believes that authenticity breeds confidence, and as such, she supports her clients in staying true to their values and apologetically honing their voice. So again, Chrisa, welcome.
Thank you. So lovely to be with you.
It's going to be so much fun. So I always like learning about how my clients got to where they are today and how you discovered that this is your passion in life.
Good question. So as you read in my bio, my background is in marketing, branding, and consumer experience for retail companies. So I started my career in fashion when I was really little. I remember going to a department store. For anybody who remembers G Fox, do you remember G Fox? My mom would go there every Sunday after church. And I remember seeing somebody dress the mannequin. And I was like, oh my God, I want to do that for my job, mommy. And she was like, yeah, right. Poo-poo. But turns out I figured out how to do that for my career. Cool. So that is what I did. For most of my early career. And as I was growing in my leadership and becoming a more senior person in the various organizations that I was working in, I realized that I needed some support in becoming a better leader because nobody really teaches you how to be a good leader. People teach you how to manage. But I was clearly seeing I was lacking some leadership skills. And specifically, the place I learned that I was lacking them in was holding my own when it came to leading the men who were now reporting into me. So there was a period in time where I was promoted and elevated inside my organization, and I inherited a group of men who were all older.
And hopefully they didn't pat you on top of the head or call you honey.
It was almost that bad, actually. No one was listening to me. Nobody really wanted to hear what I had to say. They were not following the rules. I mean, it was all the things you could imagine. This was about over 10 years ago now, but it was all the things that you can imagine that would be the case. And I remember going, oh, I should quit. Like that was my solution.
Right. It was your fault, your problem.
my fault, my problem,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm, not cut out for this, not good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I should quit. And one of my friends had a coach, and
Mm-hmm.
she recommended I go get coaching because it would
Mm-hmm.
support me.
Mm-hmm.
And my response was like, no, leave me
Right.
alone. Just coaching.
Coaching. Uh-huh.
That's so crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And she kept at it. And eventually I noodled my way through a bunch of different training programs. At first, I just wanted to do it on my own,
Mm-hmm.
and eventually landed myself with the Handel Group as a
Mm-hmm.
client.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I first started that I was so blown away by how the person I was working with was impacting me and really helping me see things from a different perspective,
Mm-hmm.
and also just really being like a trusted advisor.
Mm-hmm.
And I was left with like, wow, people do this as a job.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Mm-hmm.
And so I decided to train to be a coach.
Mm-hmm.
And for the longest time, I just thought that I was going to moonlight as a coach and work
Mm-hmm.
full time and use my coaching skills to be better at my job.
Mm-hmm.
But over time, what happened is I was falling in love with coaching and knew that I
Mm-hmm.
had to actually make the jump and
Mm-hmm.
leave. It was a very comfortable corporate
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle and job where it was actually my real passion
Mm-hmm.
to become a coach full time. So that's how I got here.
I love it. I love it. Well, I would imagine with what your company does and with what you do, 2020 was kind of a boom, as in, whoa, people figured out we need help, especially when their businesses went completely upside down, the things that, doing the business the way we had done it for years was not going to work, because people weren't in the office, businesses were closed, businesses were partially open, all of these various things. So did you guys find that? Was it something that people went, oh my gosh, we need help?
Yes, in various ways. There was really, in the beginning of the pandemic, people were like, just everything needs to be put on hold.
Mm-hmm.
Nowhere, hold.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And it was like people needed a moment to level set. But once everybody was like at home in their computers and fully functioning, what came up were a couple of different things. The first part was that in order to work remotely, you have to have a different type of culture where people can feel trusted, that there are the right rules in place about how we start and stop work, and that there's the right communication structures in place so that people can easily kind of lobby the ball back and forth when it comes to executing work and projects. So people really confronted with, wow, there was holes before, but the holes and the gaps and what wasn't working were almost sort of like minimized because we were interfacing with each other. And now that
other people could kind of cover for you. And
exactly. Yeah. So those holes became apparent. So people needed a lot of support in figuring out how to go fill those holes from a cultural standpoint. But then what it also brought up for individuals is like, wait, work-life balance? What is that?
Right. Now that work and life are in the same place, what the heck?
Exactly. I've been sitting in this kitchen for like, I don't know, the last 12 months, I think. I have not left it. So, so people were struggling, professionals were struggling with how to maintain productivity and sanity, and also like be able to manage the family and their personal lives while really working hard during a time that was unprecedented. So it brought up a lot of challenges. And so for us, it was really, as a coach, it was really a moment to show up for our clients in a way that we haven't had to do it before. And a lot of it was around helping them have coping mechanisms, learning how to stay resilient, and then also helping them invent something that didn't exist in the past when it comes to their culture.
Right. And one of the hardest things was that everybody was all of a sudden remote. And of course, the problem was it was all of a sudden. You were at work on Friday and you couldn't go in on Monday. I mean, that was, and I loved it when they said 2 weeks, it'll be 2 weeks. And we all went, yeah, right. I think we all thought maybe a month, maybe a little bit more. We certainly did not plan on a year, and things like that. But so of course, the biggest thing was initially, how do you even function? I mean, a lot of people did not have the technology. They didn't have, even if they had laptops, they might not have walked out of the office with them on Friday. And I was talking to a friend of mine who all of a sudden her husband was home, who normally travels half the time. Her 4 kids were home, and she was trying to do her business. And she said, our Wi-Fi won't do it. I mean, it was just, and because she said, they were all live streaming. I mean, it was not just, hey, let's check Facebook. It was heavy duty Wi-Fi use. So all of these things had to happen, and work still had to be done. And that's the hard part. And you mentioned one of the things was, the trust thing. People were all of a sudden like, well, if I can't see you, how do I know you're going to get the job done? And I mean, my thought process was, if you're wondering that now, you probably have issues with that employee anyway. But it really was one of those things where, people just, they had absolutely no idea how to survive in this new world.
Yeah, exactly. And also people contended with, what most people in corporate America contend with is we've always done it that way.
Yes. So this is the way we've always done it.
If anyone tells you that, it's red flag. It means they're stuck in their old ways and they're not willing to innovate. But what really happened with people no longer being in their seats, right? So like the butts and seats sort of like phenomenon that we all really care about is that people realize we don't always have to do it that way.
Right.
Actually, business can be conducted in different ways, and we can still be as productive and as connected too in many ways in our work. So I think it was the right sort of like shot in the arm, if you will, for people to get that we can invent a new culture of working. Because what we were doing before wasn't really sustainable. I have a lot of friends in different sectors, and oftentimes they'll tell me like, one of the things I'm absolutely not doing again is going back to working the way I used to work. Like I used to be in the office 14 hours a day. Right. What I'm not giving up is my afternoon walk with my kids or what I'm not is like early morning meetings. Yeah. So I think we've gotten a wide awakening, if you will, in this time.
Yeah. Whenever this calms down, if it calms down, we're not going to be functioning the way we were in, say, January of 2020. It's just not going to happen. Like you said, we all now have developed new work habits, work patterns. For a lot of people, they're still going to have their kids at home, either full or part-time. So they're still having to be teacher, in addition to everything else that they're doing. But yeah, we got used to the fact that, okay, it's 1:00. We're going to go walk the dog. We're going to, all of these various things. And for some people, they might have figured out, I really do work better at night. I get more work done by doing that than if you make me work at 8:00 in the morning. So businesses have to shift to that and basically realize, okay, if the work gets done, who the heck cares? Which is but it's a really hard process, especially for those managers that really like to have their thumb on people, for them to figure that out.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm one of those people, by the way. I really did realize that I'm much better at night. I'm much more effective and efficient to get project work done at night versus during the day. Like I'm during the day, that's where I want to get like the little things done. But like thinking work for me makes more sense in the evening. And I think what's true is that managers, especially in the day and age of technology and the fast-paced world that we live in, they're always looking for ways to optimize all the resources that they have. Right. And one of the ways to optimize resources is allowing people to work in the fashion that works most and that works best for them. This idea of like the industrialized way of doing work where we all have to be like at the factory, like in for like X time, clock in, clock out. Right. It doesn't apply anymore, yet we still apply that structure to the way that we set up corporations, the physical organization of the corporation, and then also like the culture. So I think it's interesting to see how we're going to come out on the other side and how the company of the future is going to look.
Yeah. And I'm assuming that for the most part, I think a lot of businesses they're definitely not going to go back to the way it was, for a variety of reasons. I think many businesses are looking around going, ooh, we've been paying a lot of rent that we don't need to, those overhead costs and things like that. They might still need a physical location, but maybe it doesn't have to be 10,000 square feet. Maybe it's that, they know they're going to have, a monthly meeting where people really do have to be in the same place. So they rent a hotel or, all these various things. One of the things that I've heard people say is, they pretty much know that their desk is gone. It's going to be a shared space because they're going to be working Monday and Wednesday. Somebody else will be sitting at that desk Tuesday and Thursday. Things like that. And so it really is going to be interesting to see a year from now, because I think it's going to take a year really for every process to have gone through. But the cool thing is all the positive steps. I mean, like you said, you work better at night. So, it's a benefit to the company now to let you do that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And also I want to say one other thing about this too, is that, what happens when you allow people to work how they want to work, not only are they more productive, but they're happier.
Right.
And happier people actually produce better results. They stay longer as employees. Their retention, the turnover is less for those employees, but also they're more likely to take on more initiatives. They're more likely to contribute more at work if they're happy. And so there's another benefit where like you can get more, not just productivity, but actual contribution out of an employee if they're happy in what they're doing and how they're doing it.
Right. You work with companies about their culture. I mean, that's really definitely going to make a shift. And I've been thinking about this a lot because when I was in corporate America, culture was very important to the company that I worked with. And, from just, how we held meetings to the nonprofit organizations that we supported to, all sorts of different things. And obviously we're still so early in this process that, we really don't know, but how do you see companies' cultures really shifting?
So many good things I truly believe. So one of the things that is happening now, and it's going to continue to happen, is that companies can recruit from anywhere.
Right. Oh yeah. So anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world, right? So on the employee side, it makes it a little bit more challenging. There's more competition out there for your particular spot. From the company perspective, the company has access to so much more talent and doesn't really have to worry about the inherent cost of like bringing that talent on. Like you don't have to move somebody from Colorado anymore if your company's based in New York. Like they can stay there. It's fine. And they can work on Zoom all day long. So that's benefit number one for companies recruiting from anywhere. So the pot of talent is so much more rich and diverse. The other piece of it is that employees or people who've had disabilities who traditionally have not applied for roles that they haven't been able to get into an office or live in.
I love that. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah. So it's actually interesting for us as a society because people who once weren't able to have access to jobs because of their disability now will have access. And that actually is going to improve us as a society overall because people not working is not for anybody, but also we're going to now have that representation in an organization. So the innovation that will come out of having that representation in an organization is profound. And that shift is already starting to happen.
Yeah. One of the things that's concerned me are some of the more recent stats that are coming out that are saying that the women are leaving the workforce in higher numbers. And that's because, in many cases, because their kids are home, and they have to be the teacher, all of those, and I think some really are thinking, you know what, this is great. I like being home, and so how do you see that as being, is that going to continue? Are we, because I mean, one of the other things that your company really works with is diversity. We mentioned those who are disabled and have things that might limit them to being there. I mean, not having women in the workforce is, we're going backwards.
I know. It is the consequence of the pandemic, and it's the consequence of also institutional processes and systems that women in organizations oppressed and marginalized. And I hate to say those words because they sound really dramatic and drastic, but it's true. So one of the things that I want to bring to light is in the very beginning of the pandemic, a lot of companies reacted by like doing things such as like company happy hour.
Right.
And it was after work. And women that I coach and a lot of my friends with kids would be like, I have to put the kids to bed.
I can't go. I have to fix dinner. I have to, yeah.
Exactly. And, there was a little bit of shame associated with that, or they felt bad about it, or they keep their video screen off and like on mute while they're trying to make dinner and deal with kids. That labor fell on them, or, the husband was out working, whatever the situation was. So companies still have not really figured out how to cause inclusive environments for women to make it safe for them to be like, you know what, actually go take care of my kids. Because it ends up becoming some sort of like shame on the woman. But if a man goes to say, I have to go take care of my kids, we applaud them, right? There's a double standard that happens. And we all know the reasons why. And so companies really didn't do a great job during the pandemic to make it okay for women to not be on the Zoom call, keep their video off, like take the time to take care of their kids. And that caused an exodus. One of the main reasons. There are other factors, so I'm not speaking to every single factor, but in corporate America, that was one of the main reasons, because somebody had to go take care of the kids. And then also another factor was that oftentimes when we looked at who was making more money or whose job was going to like support the family, women still make less money than men. And so a lot of the sort of sacrifice had to be on the women's part to say, okay, well, your salary is greater than mine, so we're gonna sacrifice my job so that we can take care of the kids, since we can't have the nanny or the daycare or whatever the situation might be. And so also there's been reports that women were getting laid off more than men. So that's also another conversation. But at the end of the day, the problem that we are now sitting in is that there are many women who are not working, who chose to leave for various reasons, or were pushed out, or had to make the decision when they didn't really want to make the decision. And it's, for me, I think is going to produce a very interesting backlash. And once this is all settled, the women who've left mostly are very successful, very well educated. And I think what those women are going to go produce and how they're going to shift and shape
they're going to do their own thing.
It's going to be freaking amazing. Like, watch out.
Yeah. They're going to go, I don't need you.
Exactly. The ammunition from like what's happened, where you had no control. Your family was at risk, and you could not maintain a job. Like the impact of those things really, I think, is putting women in a place where like, well, we'll just do it ourselves. We'll figure out a culture that works for us. We'll figure out a way so that it's more, I am always included because I'm mostly represented. And I think we're going to see some really interesting businesses come out of the layoffs from the pandemic, but specifically what's happened to women during the pandemic.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it really is going to be cool. It's going to be rough for a while, but that's sometimes you need that in order to have good change come about.
Exactly.
And I think this really is where companies are going to have to figure out, we have to allow people to set their own schedules, and far more so now than ever, especially if they're having to teach their kids, or even, if the kids are just home. There's a commercial that's running on TV right now where there's this woman who's Zooming, and she's got her giant coffee cup, and she keeps moving it to hide the kid behind her. And I get a kick out of it because the kid, of course, has figured out what's going on. And so he's trying to be in the Zoom picture. But, I think the other thing that everybody just has to get over is the fact that, dogs are going to bark. Kids are going to be there. You know what? You're in your home.
Yeah.
Get over it.
Yes.
I did a Zoom with somebody last week, and her dog barked. I thought it was funny. She was embarrassed. And it was like, what? You're home. Your dogs bark.
Exactly.
And so these things happen. I mean, if people are acting like in a workplace, nobody ever went wandering across, or did things there. Things happen.
Yes.
And if anything, it's actually kind of cool to get a glimpse into people's home lives. Because I think in many cases, especially women, we tended to really keep our home life separate. We didn't want them to know that we were also taking care of these 3 kids and 2 dogs and a cat. But now everybody's like, oh my gosh. So, she's playing soccer and he's doing this and this way, tell us more about it. We're learning more about people, which is always a good thing.
Yeah. Well, to the point you just made, women, we didn't want to share what we were dealing with because it was a liability for us.
Right. Yeah. People would go, ooh, you have 3 kids.
Yeah. Some scarlet letter on you, right? Oh, you're not going to be as committed, or you're too distracted. And that was one of the reasons why we had to keep it so quiet. And now everyone's exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody is exposed.
Right.
I'm chuckling. I was doing a client session and I was actually sitting upstairs. My husband was not home. At least I didn't think he was home. And I left my computer on a desk. And I went to go grab my charger, which was down here. And I come upstairs and I can see my husband in the Zoom screen and he's literally shirtless. And I'm like, oh my God, it's like a cover.
Oops.
And my client's like, what's going on? I'm like, my husband's naked behind me. And he's like, oh,
yeah.
welcome, right? Welcome.
Yeah. I've seen several spouses in bathrobes.
Yeah. So it is part of it. And I think the thing you're talking about is the getting over it part is accurate, but there is the values of tolerance that companies need to start cultivating. Right. Is tolerating the dog barking and the patience of what it means. Like you have kids in the background. It's not as easy to hear someone. Like tolerance is something we're all going to have to develop. And we've been able to sort of silo our lives out for so long and be in our workplaces and be very professional and, be in what we think is the right way to be. And that's all gone away. And it's likely not coming back in the capacity that we were in before. But cultivating a culture of tolerance is really important for companies. And each company is going to have to figure out their own path to go do that. But also really looking at what inclusivity means. When we talk about DEI, we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion. And the inclusion part is like the implementation of all the things that diversity, equity, and inclusion stands for, right? Like inclusion really is about making sure that people feel like they belong there and that it's okay for them to be who they are in the culture. While companies have done a great job at recruiting, many companies have quotas for bringing in more diverse talent or more women. We've seen more women rise up in the ranks of leadership. We've even adjusted our policies. So our policies are actually more equitable. Like even though it's not perfect, it's actually better. But one of the places where companies still struggle is the belonging component. So if you have women leaving your organization, if you see that going on, there's something up with how inclusive you are being with the women or with whatever talent is going, right? So it's about companies thinking about how do we create the environment where people can feel safe to be themselves. And actually a company is responsible for that. It needs to be a part of their mission and strategic objectives for every year, but specifically this year. And it has to be addressed because if the women go, and any person that's going to leave your organization, the less diverse your organization is, the less successful it's going to be, the less innovative, and the less dynamic. So if you really want to continue to survive in whatever is going to be after this, you need the most diverse talent. Okay. And the people with the pain points right now are the women. So you want them in your company helping you solve those pain points because the men are not going to figure it out. They do not know how. They're not living the pain point.
Right. And you mentioned that we can get employees from all over now, and obviously it does depend on the business, but it's also a benefit to be able to tell people, you know what, it's okay that you've got 3 kids and 2 dogs and a cat at home that you're having to deal with. Our company recognizes that. And we want you to come work for us because, even a year ago, there were people who would think, I just can't get that job. Not only, we talked about, physically, maybe they couldn't come in. They also thought I can't because I've got kids at home. I've got a parent I'm having to take care of. Now companies can say, we've included that as part of how we do business. And so again, I see that as a big positive where people who didn't have the opportunity or thought they didn't, now are going to be able to do things. And maybe it's that they end up working a couple of jobs, and all sorts of things. I think it's, again, once stuff kind of settles, and we kind of figure out where we're going, I think it really is going to be a big benefit to many companies if they actually embrace it.
Yes, agreed, fully.
So, it's, one of the things, your company is called the Handel Group, and they have the Handel method. What is that? What exactly is that?
Yeah. So the Handel method is an approach to coaching people that was developed at MIT, actually. So the founders of the company had been in personal and self-development for many years. And when they were starting the Handel Group, they wanted to codify a method and they wanted to give it the rigorous sort of process, if you will, that MIT student would give it. So scientists, we're going through a coaching method. So if you've got, like, you guys can understand, my husband's in finance. So when we talk, it's like we talk different languages. So it's like, like somebody who's very mathematical and linear went through what's a coaching process. And what that caused is it caused this really beautiful method where the way we take people through upgrading their world is systematic, but also has space and breadth for people to go in different directions because of where they are. But it's also very holistic. So unlike other coaching companies or coaching modalities that focus on like goal setting or like some siloed version of what's going to need to be done for a human, we focus holistically. So not only are we looking at getting people clear on their dreams and their goals, and we have a process for that, but also we help them with goal setting. That's the other component. We help them look at their personality. Many companies are very interested in learning about their people's personality. So whether they're doing the DISC profile or the assessment, we talk about that in our coaching, and we actually have a process to get people to understand their personalities and how to leverage them. Because what's true about your personality, and I'd say this to my clients all the time, is your personality is made up of a bunch of different personality traits that you have, and your personality traits cause an impact when you interact with people. So if you're someone who's super creative, that has an impact. And if you're somebody who's very defensive, i.e. me, that has an impact. And if I impact you in a certain way, that's how I leave you feeling, which then ends up being my reputation with you. So for all of us walking around trying to build a better company, coalesce a team to get an initiative passed through, we mostly stumble about, why can't I get the result? Why can't I get the buy-in? And it's, by the way, your personality might be getting in the way. And most people are blinded to the impact of their personality because they only live in the intention of their personality. So when I'm defensive, I'm not trying to be mean to you. I'm just telling you how upset I am. I come off really mean. And no one wants to talk to me afterwards. And I don't know that because I'm not on the receiving end. So we have a whole process by which we get people to really understand the impact of their personality and how to mitigate it and also evolve it, which is really profound. And then our coaching work goes even deeper, where we look at people's lives in all different areas. So even in our corporate work, we deal with people in their love life or with their body image, because all those pieces impact how you show up. And we're seeing that more and more. We were just discussing about how it impacts you at work, right? If you're unhappy in your marriage, it's going to be harder for you to be focused on work. So we make sure that we make people holistically proud about how their life is working for them, so they can produce the best results at work.
Yeah. I mean, you, as a business, you can't fix somebody's marriage, but you can know, okay, here's how we might have to be dealing with this situation at work.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So the method itself is really based in two tenets, I would say. It's telling the truth for you, and then being in integrity with your truth. And those sound like cliche phrases and like something you see on Instagram. Me, I got it. It's true. But I often tell my clients, like, losing weight is very simple. It's eat less, move more. Like the mathematical formula is always the same. We can slap anything on it. You can call it keto, paleo, low carb, whatever you want to call it. At the end of the day, exert more energy than you consume. It's basically that. So as much as tell the truth and be in integrity with yourself sounds cliche, it actually really is the way to being happy, proud, and effective. And so we teach people how to do that in their world in a very like systematic way.
Right. And you talk about how to give them the space for them to succeed. It's almost like you give them permission to succeed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. One of the things I've learned in my own coaching, so I'll speak from my own experience with people, is that when people are confined, whether they are confined because of something outside of them, some outside pressure or obstacle, or confined because of something inside of them, right? Their own worries, their own anxieties, their own self-doubts, they can't be creative.
Right.
I was just actually speaking to a client prior to this call, and I was saying to her, like, when we're in deep fear, none of your superpowers come out. You can't be the most charming when you're afraid. You can't, even if that fear is worry or self-doubt. So if you're at a party and you're trying to impress someone and you're worried they're not going to like you, you won't be your most charming self. It's impossible. Smiling and being mad at the same time, like they can't coexist. And so one of the things that we do in coaching, and I do in my coaching, is I help to peel away the layers for people to get them out of the fear grip and have them be more present to who they are. And that really does shift for people how they show up, and then it produces magical results, not because it's magic, but because when you're actually just like landed in who you are and like trusting in yourself, you're easier. And so then people relate to you in a different way, and then things become easier.
Right. And excuse me, obviously that's very hard for people because they think, if I'm myself, people aren't going to like me. My boss won't like me, the people I work with, my clients, all of those things. So, that's where it's difficult. But as you said, when they reach that point, and maybe it's that, the people that won't like that, maybe they need to not be in your space. If they, if great example is, somebody who's the life of the party. They're the jokester, and maybe they're covering that they're very insecure. And so, if they're true to themselves and they're not telling the jokes and doing all of those things, the people who like that in them, well, maybe it's time for them to go away.
Yes, exactly. One of the things I learned when I was first training to be a coach, I was very concerned with my team liking me. And the lesson I got from that is I have a particular trait. Part of my personality is people pleaser. And I've learned how to minimize that. And many people have people pleaser in their personality.
Especially women, let's be honest.
Yeah, especially women. We're very much taught to like play nice, be polite, all these things. And one of the things I learned very early on is that it's more important to have people respect you than like you. And if you don't respect yourself, no one's going to respect you. And I remember hearing that going, okay, like whatever. That's just it.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot. I'm paying you for this, really? And then I tried to implement it and I got it. Like, actually, wow, it really does matter that I stand up for myself and respect myself. And then I get that back. So it's important for people to know that like is not the ultimate objective. Respect is, and it starts first with respecting yourself.
Right.
And then the other thing I wanted to say is that, when, and you write it in my bio, when you actually lean into who you are, honoring all your quirks, all the things that make you different and weird. I often tell my clients at a coaching session, I'll say, hey, I can be very intuitive sometimes, and I just have like an interesting thought. And I don't know where it came from or what's happening for me, but I just have this interesting thought. And can I tell you? And I tell them, and I'm like, okay, you might think I'm a weirdo, but I lean into that. And actually what's happening is, as I embrace it, I add more value to my coaching session. It is what makes me different. If you don't want someone to give you an intuitive thought, don't come to me.
Right.
You're not my person. It's okay. It's okay for that to be the reality. But me trying to minimize that or manage it actually keeps me from causing the most impact. So in my bio, I said, leading into authenticity breeds confidence. If you're not going to deeply be yourself, you will never feel confident. Imposter syndrome will always be really loud. You will feel like a fake, you will feel like a fraud, and you won't trust yourself, which means that you're not going to actually be taking on all the risk that you take on to really create the life or company that you deeply want to go create.
Right. Oh my gosh, Chrisa, we don't have too much time left. And this has been such a great discussion. We just have to do it again because, there's so many things that we didn't even get to cover. And I think especially, say 6 months from now, as things are kind of hopefully settled down a little bit more, we really will see how companies are starting to function, and whether it's, the 10,000 employee place or the one, because even, somebody like me, I mean, I have clients, I have people I work with. So how am I interacting with people in this new world? And so I think it'll be fun to have you on again to really be able to talk about, how companies are shifting and are we seeing more women who have started their own businesses and partnered with other strong women? I mean, all sorts of things like that. I think this is going to be great. So, we will definitely do that. But before then, tell us how people reach out and connect with, with your company, because you do several things. And then, how do they connect with you?
Yeah. So first off, Instagram's an amazing resource. So if you're not following,
I'm old. I don't use Instagram.
I'm a laggard. I just started last year, so I understand.
I did sign up for Clubhouse, but
Fun. Yeah. Well, it's audio, right? So right up through.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So Instagram's a great resource. The reason why I say that is because on Instagram we have shows. So if you want to interact with different coaches, we do weekly and daily shows on there, so people can interact with like how we do business and how we coach people. Also, LinkedIn's another place if you are interested in the diversity conversation. My colleague Ty and I do a weekly diversity conversation.
Wonderful.
We talk about all different things in the DEI space. So that's another place to go follow Handel Group. I always ask people to follow me as well because I do a lot of things with women's empowerment, and I do speaking with entrepreneurs, and that's not always posted in the Handel Group ecosystem. So if people are interested in that content, then you can follow me on LinkedIn. It's Chrisa, Zindros, Boyce, and same thing at Handel Group. I'm sorry, at Instagram. You can follow me there. Those are probably the best places to get more information.
I love it. I love it. And your company URL, I have to look through my bifocals here, is handelgroup.com. And so that's HANDEL group.com. And yeah, I mean, you know, I was going through your website and there's so many things that you do. So I encourage people to look and see because, you know, like sports, we didn't even talk about sports, you know, and so, you know, fun things like that. But, you know, and now really is the perfect time for people to really be thinking about how they're moving forward. What, you know, personally, what are your goals? What are your company's goals? You know, all of those various things. So I strongly encourage people to visit your site and look at your resources.
Yes, for sure. Especially if you're in a growing and scaling your company and you just need some support in figuring out how to go do that. We have coaches at all different levels who've worked with building organizations that can be just a great resource. And again, if you wanted some tips and tricks and just some inspiration, Instagram will offer you those shows that give you like that content that kind of keeps you motivated. But I did want to say one other thing. We also have a digital program. It's called Inner You. And we actually created it because sometimes coaching is a barrier to entry from a time and, you know, money commitment, but also people who are running companies, they can't always invest in their people doing one-on-one coaching. It's really expensive. It's very time consuming. So we created this product where you can be taken through the entire method, soup to nuts, on your own. It's learner led and it's priced appropriately to be learner led. But with it comes an ecosystem of various programs. So master classes, specialized courses, and all of the coaches who work for Handel Group end up teaching in those places. So you'll get access to a high level coach via the program. So if anyone's interested, it's called Inner You. And if you're working on career, I would recommend Inner You Career. That's where we talk about career topics, but we have other programs if you're more focused on your life or in love as well.
Great. And those links are all on your website. So that's perfect. Well, you know, this really has been a great conversation. Like I said, I can't wait to continue it. Until then, do you have any final thoughts that you want to leave everyone with?
Oh, I just want to leave everybody with, like, you know what, this is a great time for reinvention and invention. And I know we've been all in like this heavy, dark space for such a long time, but if you have not sat with yourself and thought about like, okay, what do you want to contribute to the world or to your family in the next 10, 20 years? Go do that assignment for yourself. Like, okay, it's 20 years from now. I'm reflecting back. I'm at a cocktail party. I'm at a wedding. I'm at some event. I'm bragging about what happened over the last 10, 20 years. What would you be saying? Who would you have been? What impact would you have made? Now is really the time to go invent that for yourself, because out of this insanity and sadness that we've been living in, there's going to be so much goodness that we're all going to create. So set yourself up to be able to contribute to humanity in the ways that you want.
I love it. I love it. Well, I am Deb Creer. I've been having a fascinating discussion with Chrisa Zindros Boyce of the Handel Group. And until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.